Hello, it's Wednesday, July 20th. Since it's a Wednesday, you can find all my work at dailyfantasycafe.com in the forums and on DF Cafe on Twitter. First and foremost, let's start with thing that's been bothering me for, about 12 hours now, and I wrote up about it in this morning's report on Daily Fantasy Cafe. And this is, of course, the rain out for the Cardinals game last night. Really goes to show that Major League Baseball needs to have a policy where someone central is deciding what to do in terms of postponements and delays. As of right now, I believe the home teams, before the game starts, are in charge of their games. So you have 30 different decision makers out there, and they all have sort of different policies. Now, first and foremost, I know that there was some lightning in the area that may have caused part of the postponement or delay concern. But the first reports of lightning, I didn't get to about 9:15 Eastern time, so that's about an hour after the game should have started. And, of course, the other thing we look for is rain. It did not start raining in St. Louis to about 11 p.m. Central Time, midnight Eastern. The game was supposed to start at 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central. So that means they basically had 4 hours of dry weather, and they never even started the game. This is a case where my forecast was correct. I told everyone that the rain was going to be slowly creeping towards St. Louis, and it may never get there. Well, it did get there, but it was very slowly. It took, at about the beginning of the game at 7:15 Central, it was about 100 miles away. It was going about 5 to 10 miles per hour. It sped up to about 20, but it still took 4 to 5 hours to get in there. And that's what I was predicting, and that's what happened. Unfortunately, I can't predict what people at the ballparks are going to decide to do in terms of postponements or cancellations. I simply didn't understand why from 8:15 to 9:15 they wouldn't at least start the game with no rain and no lightning around. A follower on Twitter did point out that St. Louis is really jumpy about severe weather. They got caught a couple years ago with fans in the stand and some severe weather swept in. So they're very cautious in terms of postponement or not getting their fans at risk, which is great. And that's really something that I wish I knew before yesterday's game, or else I could have highlighted that risk. But now we know that from this point going on. Just a frustrating situation all around, where really they had, in my opinion, 3 to 4 hours to get this game in, and they didn't even try to start it. That just seems like just such a different philosophy than all other ballparks do, where they try their hardest to get their games in, and then they worry about it as the weather gets in there to cause a postponement or a delay. Again, just another lesson that I'll learn and use going forward. Luckily, let's turn back to today. The weather today is much quieter than it was last night. Only 2 places have the threat of some rain, and that's in Colorado and, unfortunately, St. Louis. Colorado is an afternoon game. I believe it's a 3:10 Eastern time start. Yep, and that's good news. The last 2 games both started delayed in the evening at 8:40 Eastern time start when they scheduled to start that games, and that is prime thunderstorm time for Denver in the High Plains. Starting earlier today, more than 5 hours earlier, is good news for Denver. They should have much less risk of a delay, and obviously probably no risk of a postponement. So I'm not too concerned there. Some thunderstorms will be popping up as the game goes on. The later the game goes, the more risk of some rain moving in there. St. Louis is the game we'll turn to next. There's a doubleheader today. There's one game that starts at, let's check the start time, at 2:15 Eastern, and the other is 8:15 Eastern. So the 2:15 Eastern, the radar should look something like this. Not too worried about anything, really. Just wanted to show you the current radar showing that there is some rain nearby, but we have about 4 hours between now and the scheduled start time. So this rain should continue to slowly sink off to the south-southeast and should not be an issue. And then this is the simulated radar for this evening. You can see not much going on there either. So since there's really no postponement concerns and delay concerns are pretty low, let's go to 2 ballparks where I think really favor the hitter today. And those are afternoon games in Colorado. Obviously, air density is off the charts, good for batters just because of the elevation, and the temperature is going to be 90 degrees. Now, the wind is blowing in from left, but it's really not blowing in with any strength or consequence, and the difference in air density should more than make up for the little bit of wind blowing in from left. And the other ballpark I really like in terms of hitters today is Wrigley Field in Chicago. It's warm, it's relatively humid, and the wind is blowing out to left at 10 miles per hour. You can't really ask for a better situation for a hitter. I know I really highlighted this game about maybe 5 over the weekend, and the bats just didn't live up to par, so to speak. But when you have these hitting conditions, when it's warm, when it's humid, and when the wind's blowing out to left at Wrigley, it's only a matter of time before we have an offensive outburst, and that could be today. Just keep an eye on it. Haven't even looked at who's starting for the pitchers, so I haven't even factored that in. Someone asked me that on Twitter, like, how do you do your hitter batter ratings? The pitcher ratings, are you looking at WOBA and swinging strike percentages? And I was like, nope, I don't look at baseball statistics. All I care about is weather. So when I do these hitters and pitcher rankings, I look at, first and foremost, temperature and humidity. Elevation obviously trumps everything in terms of course. The other ballparks' elevation is a much smaller factor. But I do use historical performances for ballparks. For example, I know Fenway Park historically sees a lot more runs than Safeco Field. So I will use that as a factor to play in. But it's really, I'm not looking at individual pitchers and any pitching stats, anything like that. I'm just looking at weather conditions. That helps that out. And I noticed an error here, and I will go fix that. Safeco Park should be 4 for hitter rating, 6 for pitcher ranking. So I'll go and fix that as we go by. Anyways, that's it for me today. Again, not too much weather going on. Just frustrated about St. Louis last night. Have a good one.